So AI has now moved from just writing things for you to actually doing things. And it's now important for us to talk about GEMS versus agentic AI. Now, GEMS is specifically for Gemini, but if you're talking of, say, ChatGPT, it is going to be the GPTs that you write. Which is very different from agentic AI. And for example, Claude Cowork would be agentic AI. So, what is the difference between these? And I really wanted to do this video to talk about the difference because I've seen a lot of conflating of these two terms. I've been reviewing articles where people very happily talk about agentic AI when in reality all they have is really just gems. And so, what is the difference between them? Okay, so when we're talking about gems, right, what you create in week 2, it is just the same interaction that you're having with Gemini, but you're now compiling all those instructions together into one cohesive set of instructions, which you can repeat multiple times. So it becomes like a templated set of instructions, so I don't have to write the same set of instructions again and again and again. Um, so what's important in this is a gem depends on your input. It depends on that back and forth with you. If you do not interact with it, it is not going to do anything. It's going to wait for your prompt to move to the next thing. So it's always reliant on your manual prompts and however you move with that. Now that if you've already started working on your gems, you'll know how the gem works. It's really not any different from the general interactions that you have with your large language models. Agentic AI, on the other hand, is extremely different. Okay, now these are systems that are completely autonomous and they can go out and do things by themselves. So I will just tell it, I want to write an annotated bibliography on a particular topic. My agentic AI will now look at what databases it needs to refer to, what are the keywords it needs to use. It will go to the databases, retrieve all that information, it'll organize the information, it'll summarize it, and at the end of it, I just get the annotated bibliography that I wanted. So notice along the way, I have had no interaction whatsoever. The system does everything. Now, that was a very simplistic um, example, but agentic AI itself can do a lot more. You just give it simple instruction, and then these agents can go and do multiple things. So they are great for um, multi-step clinical planning. So if you give it a goal like schedule follow-up care for this particular patient, so it automatically plans it, it executes the steps, and it makes sure that the email is sent to the person or the information is put on your calendar. All of those things happen because I said schedule a follow-up. Right now, I didn't have to do anything um, beyond that. And so that's why it becomes agentic. Now, does Google Gemini have agentic AI? It does. Unfortunately, the version that we have currently does not have the agentic AI functionality. You can see a bit of that agentic AI functionality, a very simplified version of it if you were trying it out with Gemini. So for example, on Gemini you can have a conversation about setting up certain blocking certain times on your calendar for a particular activity, right? You plan it out with your Gemini, you have a list of dates or times, and then you tell it to go and populate your calendar with those time blocks, and it will do it. Now, again, it's a little agentic in that it goes and makes changes to your calendar by itself. But again, it depends on your prompt. It doesn't automatically do everything there. So With agentic, the end-to-end administration, everything behind the scenes is done by the AI itself, no human intervention there. So let's look at a healthcare gem, right? It's like I mentioned, it's just pre-configured prompts or custom system instructions, right? For example, you could have set up a gem that says that always use um, medical terminology. Or, for example, you might set up a gem that is tailored to simplify this any um, content to the level of a layperson, say something along those lines, right? So that gem then does that activity following those instructions. But gems now have limitations, right? So a gem is always turn based. It'll only do something based on what input you give, and they are isolated. So the gem does not generally work with other units like agentic AI does. That agentic AI is connected to a lot of other systems. A gem generally is not. So examples of gems. All right, these are just some examples, but you've already been working on gems, so you know a lot more about this now. So, for example, you can have a pediatrician who finishes a complex surgical consult. Now, instead of spending 10 minutes drafting a letter for the parents, they can just copy the clinical note into the gem. The gem automatically translates it into language that parents can understand. And like I said, language for a lay person, right? And then it can just rewrite it. So I have saved time in that process. You can have a soap note formatter where it takes the raw notes and then formats it as you want for a soap note. And then you've got the things like a literature screener. It'll get hazard ratios, primary endpoints, and all of that from, and I want to emphasize this, from uploaded PDF journal articles. The article itself is uploaded. It does not go looking for the article. Okay, it's only extracting information from the article that was uploaded. Okay, so what is agentic AI? Like I already mentioned, just to repeat. Now, agentic AI, it doesn't just draft and give you information, it acts on it, right? So you can assign a clinical or an administrative goal. It reads the medical records, it interfaces with insurance portals, excuse me. It can handle, well, API exceptions and all are just technical stuff. Don't need to know that. Just know that it does all the activities by itself, right? Now, if the agent hits an error, for example, if a system that it's trying to connect with is not working and it can't access it, what it does is it is programmed to now look for alternate routes or to flag that as an issue for the person. So, for example, if your agentic AI was going to access your EHR, I'm just giving a random example. If it's going to access your EHR, but for some reason your EHR system is down and your agentic AI cannot access it, it will try to find other ways to get to that information, and if it cannot, it will tell the user that this particular thing is not accessible at this point. It can also be set up so that it will redo that same query at a later time. So here are some agentic workflow examples. Now, a physician orders an MRI, right? The agent now finds the order in the AHR. It automatically goes to the insurance portal, looks at the patient's history and their management, and then it uploads all that information to the insurance portal for their approval, all in the background. So you're not doing anything over there. Another one is a recruitment agent. So here the agent monitors patient rosters, incoming lab results, and then when a patient's information matches a clinical trial criteria, it automatically flags the primary investigator, right? So you don't miss any candidates. Now, this is, of course, especially important for clinical researchers. Another one would be when a physician signs a discharge order, the agent immediately starts a chain reaction. It checks for all of these things like, the different items that it's supposed to check for, and then it can schedule a follow-up visit, appointment, and whatever else that is necessary, right? Maybe send out prescriptions, notifies a home health nurse, and uh, whatever else is supposed to happen when that person is discharged. Again, all of that happens automatically, so you don't have a person sitting and manually clicking on buttons to make sure that all of these things happen. It saves time. And so that's where your agentic workflow comes. So let's look at a matrix again. Your gems are single turn, text in, text out. Your agents are multiple turns. They'll just do a whole lot of activities, right? Your software interface, what you're interacting with, it's just an isolated system that you're working with for a gem. For an agentic AI, it's more complex on the back end. On the front end for you, it might not look very different from an LLM, but it's going to be interacting with a lot more systems. For the physician, what is your workload? With GEMS, of course, there's a lot more workload because you're going to be monitoring every turn, you're going to be interacting with it. With agentic AI, it's very low. So this is where the difference is with, if you were to think of this in terms of human in the loop, on the loop, or out of the loop, agentic AI would fall into human out of the loop. A gem would be very much a human in the loop interaction. And safety guardrails, well, with a gem, you're setting up the guardrails because you're working within your own defined parameters. But agentic AI, it depends on the algorithm and what has been set up in the back.